Hello, this is Dr. Amy Baxter, CEO of PainCare Labs, and we are going to be featuring at 3 o'clock every Eastern Time, every weekday for sure, I'll see how I feel on the weekend, a home pain survival kit. So at PainCare Labs, we make devices that block pain, like Buzzy and like VibraCool for knees and elbows. But one of the really important things about being an academic physician is that I want to get the message across that doctors don't always do, which is it takes more than one answer. This is not a multiple choice test, and if you are stuck at home and you have anything, I mean, whether you're at home because you can't get out or someone can't take you, whether you're isolating in place because you've been exposed to COVID, whether you are just homebound because you don't have transportation anyway. Those things can cause depression, they can cause fear, and they can increase pain. So what we're going to do is a couple things. First of all, we're going to make a pain care package. So as we, over the COVID crisis, make connections with partners, we're going to be including with our VibraCool different kinds of things that help pain. So if you're thinking about pain, it's not just the pain, it's also how much fear you have and how much focus. So we're going to be putting together whole kits that address not just pain, but also fear and focus. So one thing with focus that's helpful, for example, our friends at Aracena are going to be giving coupons and also some samples of their Calm and their sleep things. Sleep is something that helps pain enormously, and being able to focus on having aromatherapy is also good. But first, before I get into all of the different pain fear focused things, a little bit later, I'm going to be showing you how to make a mask from a bra, because yesterday I put up some information about masks and what the difference is. And so everybody's talking about masks. These are the masks that are the surgical masks that keep you from making other people sick. And it's because the respiratory droplets that spread COVID, when you sneeze or cough, they fly out of you as much as 200 miles an hour if it's a sneeze. So when they hit the mask, they do not go any further and they don't land on surfaces. When they land on surfaces, they can last up to 2 days on plastic. Copper, not so much. Cardboard, about 8 hours, but you don't want your droplets landing on people. Now, the other kind of mask, which is the kind we're going to make today from a kit, this is an N95 mask. And so this is one I used a long time ago when I practiced medicine. These have to be fitted. These are a bit obnoxious, and these are the ones you do if you don't want to get sick, or if you're taking care of people who are sick or are immunocompromised, and you don't want to get them sick and you know that you've been exposed. So these are the heavy-duty, serious ones when you're close. The other ones are to keep people safe. So I'll be teaching you how to make a mask out of a bra you might have sitting around. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them on the Facebook and I will answer them. One of the questions that we've already gotten is, what is a droplet? So this kind of gets to the idea of what is a respiratory droplet versus an aerosol. So if something is an aerosol, the particle size is so tiny that when you sneeze, it actually stays on the airflows, like a dust or something. So you can breathe it in from across a plane or from across a kitchen. But a droplet, a respiratory droplet, that actually has some heft to it. That's got enough liquid in it that instead of just being able to float on air as if it's aerosolized, it is clinging to the droplet, and so it's going to go in a trajectory. So for example, if you're wearing, from the side view, if you're wearing a mask like this and you sneeze, the sneeze is going to have these droplets hit this and then either drop straight down, or if they're small enough, they're going to get absorbed on the mask. So that's what we say when we say that this is stopping respiratory droplets. So the you can get COVID through your eyes. So hospitals now, and my friends in the emergency room, have goggles that they're using. So they're adding not just a mask like this, but also goggles to protect their eyes when they have a patient with suspected COVID. But if you're just trying not to get people sick, then hand washing and having a light mask are fine. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit now about our Pain Fear Focus plan and what's going to be coming. This is going to be starting, we're going to tell all of our Buzzy connections who have signed up for our email list on Friday where the blog is, what to look at, and what to expect. In a nutshell, because you're paying attention now, what we're going to have is a Buzzy home pain survival kit, and it's going to have a quick blog at the top talking about the fact that people need options. They need options for pain, but also options to decrease fear and options to focus on something else. The thing is, your body is complicated in the way it approaches pain. Pain is kind of your body's opinion of how safe it is. So if you're enjoying your friends or you're enjoying a movie, you're not bothered by pain because your brain thinks you're safe. And it is perfectly acceptable and useful if you have pain to have movies, other people to focus on, and different kinds of focus activities. So we're going to have on this blog a list of focus activities. We will have everything from links to exercises that kids can do. So if you're homebound with your kids, you and your kids can do Kid Bop, Bebop, and have activities that will help you get your mind off of pain. We will also have things to deal with fear. So if you've ever seen a small child get an immunization and they're just getting cleaned with an alcohol swab, but they're freaking out, that light touch they're perceiving as pain because they are scared. And so fear in any situation, if you've had multiple kids, your first labor may have been worse because you didn't know what to expect. Once you know it's supposed to feel like that, it's a little bit less scary. So for fear, this is where we get into things like mindfulness apps and calming apps. And by the way, if there's a red dot, I think it's questions. So if they don't show up, I almost touched my nose, but I didn't. One trick for teaching yourself not to touch your face as much is to put raw onion. After you've washed it, just dab a little bit of raw onion on your knuckles, and then when you reach your face up, the onion smell will hit your face before your hand will. But so we've got focus, which is distraction, which is other things to pay attention to. We have fear, and fear, one thing that's helpful is different apps. So for example, Jill Wenner, who is a doctor in Atlanta, Georgia, is going to be providing a mindfulness app link for healthcare professionals to de-stress and to meditate, and we'll also have coupons for some of her other products. And then the final thing is pain, and so obviously we have Buzzy and VibraCool, and they are naturally reducing pain using a specific frequency that works like when you bump your elbow and rub it. And the important part about pain management is it has to be easy, and you have to understand it, and it has to work right away. So other things for pain, though, every day we're going to have something new that we put in. So one thing, for example, is my favorite, magnesium. If you've got magnesium supplements around the house, or if you're not taking your vitamins, magnesium is a smooth muscle relaxant. It is a neuro-anti-inflammatory. It is a full-body anti-inflammatory. And it is a smooth muscle relaxer. And it also increases your efficacy of opioids. So, because it's called an NMDA blocker. So if you are on opioids and you can't get more and you're scared because your prescription's going to run out and you're sheltering in place, stretching out the opioids you have and using magnesium is a way that you can increase the efficacy of those opioids by about a third. So every day we'll be putting new things up. It will be much tidier than this, but here's for today, we've got magnesium. For focus, we've got kid exercise. And fear, we're going to have Dr. Dr. Jill Winter's apt. So I'm going to take a question that just came in, and then after that question, I will be making our mask. So the question is, how long is coronavirus going to last? While there is no crystal ball, there are a couple of factors that play into this. The best graph to look at projections is on the Financial Times website. We'll put a link on our Buzzy page. But what it shows is that almost all of the countries where COVID has taken place, it starts when there were 100 cases, and then it logarithmically rises. So the interesting thing is that in almost all of these countries, the incidence has increased by about 33% a day, and it's linear. So the U.S. has been, since Monday, there was a 26% rise. Tuesday to Wednesday, there was a 23% rise, so that was better. But since we're getting the tests out there between Wednesday and today, the number of cases has gone up 40%, not 33%. So all of those numbers are to say that there is actually a pretty good idea with the curves. The interesting things are that when the curves, like in Korea and Hong Kong and Singapore, when they started socially isolating, those curves flattened. I know that you've heard about flattening the curve. So the isolation stuff really does start flattening. But just assuming we don't flatten, assuming we keep rising the same way that all the other countries are, because we have the same immune systems they do, and this virus is acting the same other places that it's acting here, assuming all that is true, then the time it took for China to start flattening and for some of the other places to start flattening was about 30 days from when they reported their 100th case. So if that is the case, then we would hope to stop having that kind of increase in the United States around April 6th or 7th. Now, we're still going to be adding to the cases, just not as many. So that means that we're going to start getting to a flatter, lower level about 30 days after that, which would be about May 7th or 8th. We are still going to have coronavirus floating around, but there are fewer cases in hotter climates. We can hope, again, that the virus for most people is not that uncomfortable or even dangerous. We're just trying to make it less common so that the people who are really vulnerable stay away from it until we have a vaccine or treatment. So yeah, there's still going to be this circulating definitely probably forever at this point. I mean, it's out there. It's not going to go away because we can't isolate it well, because it spreads without symptoms and because people shed when they've already recovered and before. So all of these reasons, it's still going to be around. Fortunately, it is for most people really mild, and equally fortunately, we're really likely to be able to have ways to treat it soon. So the how long will it be around? Well, probably forever, but how long is it going to be affecting us like this? Probably until mid-May. And it may be that the warm weather is enough to lower the intensity in our emergency rooms so that we can start behaving more normally unless you are somebody who is prone to the disease. So let's talk about the prone to the disease people. So we're talking 65 and up. We're talking healthcare workers. We're talking people who have underlying conditions like asthma, hypertension, diabetes. The good news is that we are probably between 2 and 3 months away from having some treatments that work. So Gilead Sciences has an antiviral that is being used and showing promise. Once we have something like that, like, for example, I doubt very seriously, and most early signs do not show that Tamiflu is going to help. It's a different kind of virus. Yeah, it's for viruses, but it's a different kind of virus. That said, with flu, if you are exposed and you take one Tamiflu a day, it is very good at being prophylactic, at preventing the disease. So there's a really good chance that while we won't be able to stop the spread of COVID, until we have a vaccine, there's a really good chance that whatever antiviral is created will also have a good chance of being a prophylactic, of being able to prevent it. And the best estimates that I see now, there are certainly cocktails of antivirals that are being given in places like India, that are being tested in Norway. I believe that we'll probably have some answers within 2 months that give us a couple different options with antivirals and antiretrovirals that are being used now. Now, the question about a vaccine, the reason that we don't have vaccines quickly is because if you're giving a vaccine, you're giving it, well, it's like 3 reasons. One is, if you're giving a vaccine, you're giving it to 100 million people. So any small side effect is going to be amplified by millions. So you've got to have a huge group that you test it in to find the rare things. When we started with Buzzy, we had 1,000 Buzzies in circulation, and everybody thought they were great. But once we had 10,000 in circulation, we had 10 people that came to us because their Buzzies got loud. Now, 1 in 1,000 doesn't make you feel that bad. But all of a sudden, when you've got 10 people coming at you with something that's loud, makes you feel like you've got a real problem on your hands. Same thing with a vaccine. If you've got 1 person in 1,000 that you try in the trial who gets a horrible rash, that may not seem like a big deal, but if you've got 100,000 people or 100 million, all of a sudden you've got an enormous rash of rashes, and that's a problem. Second thing about making a vaccine, there's a good reason to expect that the coronavirus causes something called immune enhancement. And what that means is that the immune response is much stronger if you've seen something like this before. Now, if you get in trouble because you don't have an immune response, that's when the virus hurts the young people and the very old. That's not what we're seeing. We're seeing that healthcare workers who have probably been exposed to similar things, and older people who were probably alive in the 60s and 70s and were exposed to similar things, their response is much higher. And that inflammatory immune response, and sometimes, is what's killing people. It's filling up their lungs, and it's their own immune system that's causing the problem. So that means that there are more risks with making a respiratory vaccine, because you may be enhancing the very immune response that's causing problems. And that just means it's likely to take longer to test this for safety than it would for a normal vaccine. So with all of that said, I'm going to see if there are any extra questions. Does anybody ask any questions? We're good.
Yeah, we do have one more question.
All right.
Do we know how aggressively the virus mutates?
That's a great question. Do we know how aggressively the virus mutates? There are 2 mutations that have been definitely documented since the original Chinese spread from Wuhan. One of them seems to make it less dangerous than what they had there. The other doesn't seem to make a difference. So if there's only 2 in 4 months, then I guess you've got a mutation every 2 months. The thing is, the speed of the mutations isn't as much of an issue. It is viruses do mutate. And yes, it could mutate to be less dangerous. It can also mutate to be more dangerous. But the thing about mutating to be more dangerous is you end up with a virus that kills people so quickly, or they get sick so fast that they don't spread it. This is kind of what happened with SARS. So SARS was 10% case fatality rate, really high. Because it had such a high case fatality rate and people got sick so quickly with it, it was easier to segregate them and to keep them separated. So it's not necessarily that relevant how fast it mutates, because the primary parts of it that the antivirals are going to address is going to be the replication mechanisms, and so that's going to be the same throughout. And the other reason why it's probably not as big a deal how fast it mutates is because if it gets too dangerous, it's going to snuff itself out. It won't be something that's around. So maybe not as big a deal. All right. So now, if you are bored and you are home, or you're in pain and you want to focus on something cool, you should learn about the Ig Nobels. The Ig Nobel Prizes. Ig Nobel Prizes are awarded to scientists who do things that make you laugh and then make you think. And one of the Ig Nobel Prizes was given to a woman whose link and information we'll put down, but she's at the University of Chicago, and she was seeing people fleeing actually from a gas attack. And they had clothes in their hands, and some of them even had bras. And she was like, they've got stuff that can stop the inhalation of gas. Why aren't they using it? And so she went further to think, every single bra could be 2 masks. So this is how you can make yourself a mask. So if you do not have a mask like this, find yourself a bra that you're no longer wearing. This bra, in addition to being too small for me, only has one of these little straps, so not very useful. But I never throw anything away, so it's been sitting in my drawer for about 10 years, back when I could wear it. So here's how you make a mask. It's very difficult, extraordinarily difficult. Take the bra that you've decided you no longer like, and are you writing this down? Cut it. And now you've got 2 masks. All right, so you're saying to yourself, I've got a mask, how do I put it on? So that is how you put it on. And then this, which is already stretchy, goes on. And I decided to try to do a little movie magic before I did this, but it's not quite as good as Martha Stewart. So I sewed a little piece on. There you go, so I could have it catch. So, ta-da! Now you are safe. Take a little piece of thread, make yourself a hook, and now you've got a mask. And you can put it on, you can put it over your ears. Now, is it going to take every aerosolized? Probably not, but I could wear this for a while, and I can talk, and I could take care of somebody, and I would feel perfectly comfortable that I am not getting their respiratory droplets in my mouth or face. So there you have it, bra mask. That's all I have for today. So we are going to be doing this at 3 p.m. on Facebook and at 4 p.m. on Instagram. Tell your friends, and definitely get on our mailing list so you can get the email on Friday that tells you about the link for the home pain survival kit and all of our links for different pain, fear, and focus treatments. And to everybody out there, truthfully, I promise you, it's going to be fine.